Hello.
Hi.
So, welcome to the Fresh Talks stage. I'm here with Adele Fash from FareShare. She is their commercial manager for fresh produce. And we're going to talk about a fund that FareShare set up recently called the Surplus for Purpose Fund. That was up in July, is that right?
It was launched in July, this year.
Launched in July this year, and it's going to enable more food to be redistributed to various charities and community groups across the country. So first of all, tell us a bit about that fund.
Okay, so maybe I'll give you a bit of context about who FareShare are. So we're the UK's largest food redistribution charity in the UK, and we work towards fighting hunger and food waste in turn. We work with the food industry to look for opportunities for surplus food and how we can redistribute it to those charities that you mentioned. The Surplus with Purpose Fund is a fund which uses grants from various donors, which include DEFRA, and uses that money to allow companies to offset some of the costs involved in sending their food to FareShare once they identify it within their supply chain as potential waste. The fund essentially allows those companies to tackle some of the barriers that they may have experienced in the past in diverting that food. Of course, if you identify waste in your supply chain, it may not be cost effective to send it to charities who can use it, and the fund allows those companies to access funding against things like labour, so they can use the fund to harvest goods from the field. They can get money back for their labour costs. They can use the fund to help provide labour to box and sort that produce, and then they can use the fund to access labour costs to basically palletise that product. Another important element of the fund is that it covers the transport costs. So FareShare can arrange the logistics and the transport to collect that food and send it and distribute it to 22 of our regional warehouses across the UK. And then that food is then sent to almost 11,000 charities across the UK also who use that food to make nutritious meals.
So obviously this fund isn't just for primary production redistribution, but it goes a long way to making farm level food waste commercially saleable. Well, not saleable, but you can afford to send it to charity. What challenges are there in doing that beyond the financial costs?
Okay. So with a lot of our primary producers, I think costs are a barrier. Beyond that, they're the usual barriers that farmers face around weather, can it be harvested, if there's too much rain, etc. Generally, a lot of the farmers, as soon as they hear about our fund and the ability to navigate some of those barriers that are cost linked, they're really excited and they have a lot of enthusiasm and energy because they know that someone like FareShare can come in, pick it up, make it easy, transport that food and get it out to charities really quickly. And for them, it's really nice to see that food being actually used. Other than the usual sort of farming barriers that naturally cause issues everywhere, there haven't been significant challenges.
And so what uplift have you seen in the volume of produce you've been able to redistribute thanks to this Surplus with Purpose Fund?
So since the Surplus with Purpose Fund was launched, we've seen demonstrable increases across all the food categories. For produce, so for fresh fruit and vegetables, we've seen around on average an increase of 40 tonnes a month, and that equates to around 90,000 meals every month, which is incredible. And whilst that it's not all accountable to the fund, a lot of it is part of the use of companies accessing that fund. Another element that the fund brings as a benefit to FareShare and the companies we work with is that it starts to create conversations, and it helps companies understand who FareShare is and understand their own opportunities to redistribute surplus, and to start talking about some of the ways that we can access that surplus. And a lot of time it's just troubleshooting, and quite often they don't need to even access some of the funding because FareShare is able to go in and collect that food using our national hauliers without cost to those farmers.
So it's worth mentioning, I'm not sure if you did earlier, that this is kind of by virtue of a £15 million DEFRA fund which was launched back in May, I think.
Yeah.
So you've received 1.9 million from them so far, and I mean, do you feel that the funding from government so far is sufficient, and do you have confidence that it will be continued?
Yeah. I mean, any funding is brilliant. The funding has certainly allowed an increase, as we've seen already in just a few months, in volumes. And I think something that's really important about the fund is that it's allowing us to better understand volumes and data of waste at the farm level. And quite often we've had a focus on waste levels beyond the farm gate. And by working with various growers in the UK, we're much better able to understand and build a picture for the government and future funders of what kind of levels of waste there are, which is perfectly edible food that can go into our charities.
And can you give us an idea of the kind of impact that this redistributed food can have on charities and community groups?
So fresh produce, so fruit and veg specifically, multiple benefits. We know that the nutritional benefits of fruit and veg. We've got so much science behind that. Those charities are able to use that produce to cook most often a nutritious warm meal for any of their service users. We have around 11,000 charities in our network at the moment that we distribute to, and those charities use that food as an opportunity to not only provide nutrition to their service users, but also to start bringing those people into their community and start having conversations and helping those people that access the food through the charities to start to access the other services that those charities are using, such as counselling or activities during the day. If you're an elderly person, you'd like to diversify your sort of daily activities, you can go into one of these daycare centres, have a nice warm meal, start to talk to people and engage in some of the activities that they have. Another significant benefit of fresh produce is it's saving those charities a significant amount of money. In 2017, I think we estimated around £33 million were saved by the charities within our network, and that's because they're able to reduce the bills of their usual food costs that they would usually use to engage their service providers.
So it's not just about the nutritional benefit of the food, it's also about freeing up money for other services.
Exactly, and they can use that money towards the services that they're really trying to deliver. And just creating a point to reduce isolation for their service users. It gets people to come and have a chat. We all know we might invite family and friends over for a meal because it's a point where we can start to have a conversation. So there's lots of benefits.
And on a kind of practical level, which fruits and vegetables do you currently redistribute in the greatest volumes, and do you have a need for certain other types of fresh produce which you don't receive so much of?
Okay, so working with UK growers, we're obviously following seasonality. We lately, if I just reflect, we've had lots of onions, amazing onions, and you can do so much with onions. We've had lots of courgettes. We've had corn on the cob. In terms of volumes, it varies because those different fruits and vegetables have different weights, so it's quite hard to sort of say that. But off the top of my head, lots of onions, lots of courgettes, lots of sweet corn, lots of apples.
And your second part of your question was?
Are there any products that you would like to see more of? Are you lacking anything?
FareShare are very happy to receive most
Sure.
products. Whole fruit and veg is brilliant.
Yeah.
All of our service users get so many gains. I wouldn't say anything in particular. Fresh produce has a great shelf life, and our charities really have good chefs and are able to work with some of the more lesser known vegetables in the UK and fruits.
And just finally, how would you assess the kind of uptake in redistribution to organisations like FareShare and the charity sector? Do you think there's still a lot of room for that to grow? And do you see kind of increasing appetite within the fresh produce industry to send surplus to charity?
Okay, 2 parts, so you might have to remind me. So to answer the first question, I think current figures estimate there's around 8 million people that are food insecure in the UK. We certainly have a lot of charities and frontline organisations who are approaching FareShare and looking for surplus food, and that includes everything from a homeless shelter, an after-school club or breakfast club, holiday clubs for children, which you might find really interesting. There's a huge amount of children in the UK that are food insecure, and when the school holiday hits, that's a really difficult time where those children aren't receiving those nutritional meals every day. So to summarise, yes, we've got a lot of interest in FareShare, and as the story grows, as FareShare grows and becomes more well known, I am sure we will keep increasing those numbers. To answer your second part of the question, which was around the interest from the supply chain, and specifically growers.
Yeah, specifically fresh produce growers.
Every week we're going out and we're meeting growers who are interested. They're either contacting us or we're contacting them. And when they hear about the social impact, which not only helps charities around the UK, but also helps communities within their own local towns or counties, they are encouraged and they're infused. And whilst food waste can bring a lot of social good, there's also, basically by working with FareShare, those companies can help support commitments towards waste reduction plans, which RAP have a food waste roadmap, and a lot of retailers and companies in the UK are committed to this roadmap, and the conversation that UK growers can use in terms of this roadmap and their efforts to help reduce food waste is really useful for them as a company. If that helps. It's a bit muddled, sorry.
It does help, it does help. Thank you very much, Adele.
Thank you.